In a world overflowing with distractions, we seek meaning. How do we transform ambition into something deeper, into true fulfillment? I'm Sam Pepin, CEO of Course Educa, and I've spent years helping businesses succeed by connecting their goals to something bigger. On the Meaningful podcast, we explore not just how to win in business, but how to grow as individuals. Through conversation with thought leaders, innovators, and everyday heroes, we uncover the stories that drive us towards something greater. Whether you're striving for success, seeking purpose, or just looking for the next steps in your journey, this podcast is your guide to navigating the intersection of ambition, growth, and meaning. So please join me and our incredible guests as we redefine what's possible in both business and life. Enjoy.
Your only limits are the ones you put on yourself. Welcome to the Meaningful Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Pepin. Today we're diving into unlocking peak performance, mastering prosperity mindset, and helping entrepreneurs break through the barriers to exponential growth. Our guest today is Jeni Jonte, founder of Eliminate Impossible, a high-performance mindset and prosperity coach. Jeni draws on her background in physical therapy to truly listen to her clients and identify what they need to achieve breakthroughs. She specializes in helping entrepreneurs and self-professionals 10x their businesses by combining top-level mentoring with programs like Thinking into Results. Driven by a deep desire to serve, Jeni's work has proven to be most fulfilling in her career, watching people amaze themselves with what they are truly capable of. If you enjoyed this discussion, please let everyone know with a like, a small review, or even a quick share. Your support helps more people find meaningful content just like this. Let's begin. Miss Jeni Jonte, welcome on the Meaningful Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Sam. Thanks for having me today.
It's great having you, and it seems like you're from beautiful Denver. Always great to go there. I go there a few times a year. It is quite beautiful. To kick us off, please tell us more about Eliminate Impossible.
Sure. So we do high performance mindset and prosperity coaching, and primarily working with entrepreneurs and sales professionals or just business owners in general, just helping to upscale or, quantum leap their business, whatever their results are that they desire.
Interesting. And so tell me more about the genesis of all of this. Where did this some fascination with optimization basically comes from? Tell me more about that story itself.
Yeah. So, well, actually, my background is in physical therapy. So it's kind of a big transition a little bit, but in the same realm, I feel like I've been coaching this whole time. So I did that for about 15 years. But during that time, I've always been really interested in personal development and growth. And so eventually I landed upon the work of Bob Proctor, and that is when everything really clicked for me. And so then I just jumped in feet first. I just knew something told me this is what you're supposed to do. And so I just started and jumped right in, and just learning more and more through the years of the power of our mind and how our thoughts create our reality. And then seeing how people just, I don't want to say struggle, but they do, and they get overwhelmed and frustrated as they're trying to grow their businesses, or they want to reach the next level and they've been stuck at a certain point for 5 years or whatever it may be, and seeing how tapping into the internal and changing your mind and shifting things there can have such a huge impact on that external results of our life.
Beautiful. Tell me more about that transition. So you basically, what did your transition, because you were in healthcare, obviously sort of more formally. So what did that transition from healthcare to high performance coaching teach you about transformation specifically? Because it's something I think that we all sort of can relate to as entrepreneurs, as high performers. There's physical, basically prosperity, but then there's also the mindset, there's spirituality basically behind it. So tell me more about basically how you learn from all these different aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think making that transition, I had to tap into a lot of parts of myself that I hadn't really done before. I worked on this stuff on my own, sure, but it didn't really start to click until I was trying to start teaching it to other people. And then I really had to go inside, and even to make that transfer from being a physical therapist to now being a coach, I had to really look at my own self-image or self-concept of who I thought I was. And I didn't realize just how much I had my identity wrapped around being a physical therapist because that is how I, introduced myself. That was how I saw myself. And I, went to school for all this time and I had all these loans that I paid off and I made this huge investment into that career. So making that shift into doing something completely different, and just having that trust and faith and knowing that this is what I was supposed to do. It didn't look perfect at first. It took a little while. In fact, I continued to see patients for quite some time, trying to do both at the same time before I fully let that go and then stepped into the new identity or my new image of myself. And it wasn't until I did that things really started to take off, because there was always this part of me holding myself back from my own success.
There's a key component to Buddhism, which I'm a big fan of. I'm very close to actually a lot of movements, spirituality-wise and religious-wise, I suppose. But it's this idea that basically the mind is everything, and what you think you become, right? That's a quote directly from Buddha. What do you think of that? How do you interpret it? And perhaps how would you put it in your own practical words?
Yeah, I think that's 100%. I would say all of the great minds of the past all agree on one thing. Like, what we think about is what we become. So just like you just said, so thoughts become things. And when you start to understand what the mind truly is and not, I think there's this proponency to think of the brain when we think of the mind, which it's not. The brain is just part of your physical body. The mind is separate from that. And when you start to fully understand that and realize that the mind is energy, the mind is, like you said, everywhere, and that technically all our minds are connected. Like, it really gets very interesting when you start to get deeper into this. And then understanding that thoughts are the most potent form of energy that there is, and realizing how much power they really have. And so when you say something like what you think about is what you become, it really is. And that internal dialogue is probably one of the most important things that we need to look at. And sometimes we're not even aware of the things that we're telling ourselves throughout the day. And it's on a subconscious level a lot of the times. So we go into something and we might outwardly say, like, I can do this, I'm going to be successful, I can, whatever it might be. But internally, those other thoughts might be going on subconsciously, telling us, like, who do you think you are? You're not meant for this. You can't succeed here, whatever that might be. So understanding what that's coming from, starting to become aware of those thoughts and then transferring them into what you want them to say is really powerful.
You mentioned Bob Proctor. Why in particularly? I read Bob quite a bit, but there's a lot of these enlightened minds. What do you think it was Proctor for you that made you do the switch?
Yeah, I think there was something about that first video. So somebody had shared it to me in a totally different context. It was just, a part of a group that I was in, and they would share different videos here and there. And I listened to like Tony Robbins, Brene Brown, and Jim Rohn, all of these other people. And I always enjoyed it. But for some reason, they didn't have the impact that this video, I was like, okay, I'll listen to it. And next thing I know, I stopped everything I was doing. I sat down, I was taking rigorous notes. I was like, where has this been? Like, something about the clarity that it brought to my mind. I think just being able to visualize, I think he was sharing about the stick person and paradigms. And somehow I had never heard these terms before, and it just brought it all together in a way that I could finally see and visualize what it was that was happening, understanding how our conscious mind affects our subconscious mind, but our actions and everything that we do comes from our subconscious mind. And I was just like, oh my goodness. So I went on a 2-week binge of watching all of his videos that I could get. And then I was just like, okay, I'm in. And I just went for it.
Interesting. You talk about this concept of eliminating impossible. And
Yes.
we'll spend a few time there, but obviously through your brands and what you're trying to achieve basically with clients, there's really seemed to be, I suppose, a concept of achieving what once was unreachable from the client's perspective, I suppose. Tell me more about the methodology, basically. How do you help a client, if I was a client of yours, basically shift from that's impossible to that's inevitable, or perhaps that's energetic and we can work on it to actually facilitate the reality we're trying to create?
Yeah. And I think all of that comes from our perspective, or at least it starts there, right? So to start out, there are two words that even in our household, I do not allow. That is can't and impossible, because I don't believe in those words. I don't think that we should put those limitations on ourselves. The second that you say one of those things, you've solidified it, right? So if you say it is impossible for me to 10x my business, that could never happen, it's never going to happen, right? You've already put it out there. You've told yourself it's not going to happen. It's not going to. If you say, I can't do this, you're right. You can't do it. So whatever you tell yourself, you're right, essentially. So those two words are just, not a part of our vocabulary. And that's part of what I want to establish, right? Like we are going to eliminate that word from your vocabulary. We're not going to speak it anymore. And so we're going to say everything is possible. So that's kind of like the tagline, I guess you would say, underneath. And so it starts by looking at your perception, looking at your self-image. So I used to teach that you want to find your vision first, your goals, or what you're trying to go for, right? But then, and like the self-image, self-concept work was a little bit further along in the program, but I've actually switched that because I believe you need to really know yourself first. And I'm coming to realize that so many of us don't know ourselves. Like we go through school and we do what we have to do, and we learn all of this stuff, and then we come out not even really knowing who we are. I know for myself, I spent most of my life kind of as a chameleon and just conforming to what I was told I need to do. I was told you go to school, you go to, college, you get a degree, you do a profession, like this is just what you do. And this is the course that everybody takes. And so I just conformed into whatever setting I was in. Right. And it's not that I didn't enjoy those things or I didn't enjoy physical therapy, but when I stopped and started to try to understand who I actually was, what I desired out of life, what I valued, what I understood to be true, like what beliefs I was holding about myself and about the world, then all of these things started to unfold. And this vision that I thought I had, I realized was a vision that somebody else had placed in for me. Like the reason we're in Colorado, for example, we always came out here on vacations. I grew up in Illinois, and I just thought, I love the mountains. I really do. But really the reason that I understood I came out here was because I thought when my parents retired, they would come out here because I knew they loved Colorado. They've been retired a long time. They never moved. So essentially I built my life here for somebody else. So actually, I'm in the process of trying to move to the ocean because that's where I want to be once I've done this work and understood myself better. But this is just an example of how we can allow other people's ideas or ideals or what we think they want us to do impact our vision for ourselves. So that's why I start now with understanding yourself, getting your self-image, the type of person that you see yourself to be and how you want to improve that, and then using that to establish our goals and our vision and where we want to go. And then we go through all of the other things on top of that, understanding the mind, the paradigms, the attitudes, praxis, beliefs. The beliefs are a huge part as well that we really need to bring to the surface and then maybe alter if they're not serving us. So I see that's a big place where we hold ourselves back as well as in beliefs.
I'm a big fan of these ideas of the different world, the different perspective being different worlds. So perhaps in this conversation, there is my world, your world, the world, right? Objectively, as what we consider reality. And I think you said it very well, but basically being from my perspective, what I consider to be impossible is impossible for me. I put that limit on myself. I put that ceiling perhaps on myself. Mm-hmm. And therefore, what I consider to be impossible is completely decided by what I, as perhaps myself in this case, decide to do so. And that's a very strong, very, very strong perspective. I remember Alexander the Great, which was a person that I love to study the most, and he said nothing is impossible for basically he who try. And it's very important to comprehend this concept, because when you say to begin at the source, right, begin with yourself, begin with understanding perhaps yourself, there's a lot of things to untangle there, and so I want to sort of begin to unpack it. So from your perspective, what is yourself in the purest sense of the terms? Do you believe that we're basically flesh? Do we believe that we're soul in the flesh? Do we believe? How do you begin to identify yourself from your perspective?
Yeah. So my understanding is that we are existing on three planes. So
Yeah.
we are spirit, we are dwelling inside of a physical body while we're here on this earth, and we are mind. As we talked about, the mind is separate from the physical body. And when I started to understand the concept of me as a spirit, that I'm just in this body is not who I am, it just is what I am using, I guess we'll say, while I'm here, that really started to open up so many more possibilities. Understanding that your spirit is, in my opinion, your spirit is divine heritage. Your spirit is connected to a much bigger, whatever you want to call it, universe, source, like whatever terminology feels good for you. And we are all connected. Everything is connected, and your spirit is perfect. Your spirit has infinite potential. So when you start to understand that and you start to try to connect to that part of yourself better, that's when things can really open up. And you start to understand these, like, just the limitations that we have put around ourselves as humans. So we believe, okay, we're in this human physical body, so we are only capable of X, Y, and Z. We have set these standards for ourselves of what we believe we can do. And a lot of that just comes from people who, just aren't aware of what it is that is possible, not necessarily aware of what we truly are. And the more that you increase your awareness, the more that you expand what is possible for you. So if you, listen to what people say, I don't know, for example, maybe you're going to do a course, or we'll go with that idea of, like, you want to 10x your business. So you've been at this level for 5 years and you'd really like to just jump, quantum leap, right? We hear that term a lot. And people will tell you you're crazy. There's no way you can do that. And if you allow those people to infiltrate into your subconscious mind, and that will set your belief of, no, I can't just make that big leap. I can only go, well, 2x this year, or maybe we'll 3x. That would be really pushing it, and if you think only in the logical steps of what we believe is possible within the realm of this world, then you're going to be limiting yourself and what you are capable of doing.
Talking about quantum leap,
Yes.
obviously there's quantum leap in business, there's quantum leap in mindset also. You talk about this quite a bit. And quantum is a very interesting term. We've been seeing quantum basically use quantum leap, quantum computing, quantum a lot of things actually. And truly, or quantum physics, obviously, which is where most people emerge off of it. I suppose you said that if you're only grounding yourself in the logical, then you miss basically this sort of other world, which is this infinite potential that is in the mind, in your spirit, perhaps, and not in the mind. And when you think about this, I suppose quantum, which is a type of science, it's basically a form of tapping into the finite as the infinite, excuse me, not the finite, as they say from a physical perspective or a computing perspective. So tell me more about, I suppose, how can someone basically convince themselves, or perhaps work with somebody like yourself to, and convince, maybe not the right word, but expand their mind and expand their being to a point where they can accept such a possible truth? And what has been the best formula, the best tools in which you've been able to help somebody basically do so from a personal, from a business standpoint? Because it truly begins with the mindset. Like we said, if you put that ceiling on yourself, that ceiling will always be there, and you will not be able to basically break it. So I'm really thinking tangibly, basically, what does it typically look like? And can you perhaps give me some meat around the bone concerning the actual process itself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it depends a lot on the person as well. So some people have this amazing ability to accept a new belief very quickly. And so that's actually something that I even tell myself, like, so that I can accelerate this process for myself, is I accept a new belief in an instant, and I can easily disperse any limiting beliefs that are not serving me, right? So I just continue to tell myself, like, I accept a new belief in an instant and I can just change my belief right away. But sometimes that takes a little bit of time. And that's where like the constant spaced repetition will come in. So first you have to understand what your current beliefs are, which takes a little bit of being honest with yourself and like really sitting down and trying to understand where it is that you feel, this is where you could look at your paradigms and start to understand what those are. And there's a few ways to do it. One of the most simple ways that I feel is, for example, like if you're trying to change your beliefs or your understanding around money, then, just put money in the middle of a page, circle it, and just write down everything that comes to mind. Or if like you have that goal, 10x your business, write down everything that comes to mind. And you have to be very, very honest or this isn't going to work, right? So if you say, oh, that would be really nice, this is what I desire. Oh, I don't think that I can achieve that. Who do I think I am? I'm not worthy of that amount. That's impossible. It could never happen. Like whatever comes to mind, so that you can start to weed out and understand what it is that you truly believe. And it's not about like writing down what you think you should say, because then it's not going to work, right? Like you have to really go down and understand where you are currently like programmed, if you want to use that term. And then we have to reprogram that. We have to establish new beliefs around what is going to be possible. So if you want to 10x your business and you come up with these ideas of like, I'm not worthy, this could never happen, then we need to flip that, right? So this is where, a couple of different ways you could do it, but with the constant spaced repetition, you can just now write out something specific. You could say as an affirmation, whatever you want to call it, just a statement in present tense telling you, establishing your worthiness, making sure that you understand your self-worth, that you can achieve that you are worthy of achieving it, and writing out what it is that you want to do with it as well, right? So if it's a monetary goal that you have, making sure that you have a very good why. So like, I want to do X, Y, and Z with this money. I'm going to help these people. I'm going, whatever it is that you are going to do with that, right? Because if it's just money for money's sake, it's not going to get you emotionally involved. Like this is what we need, is the emotions to be involved with it. So, and I've kind of lost my train of thought because we've covered so many things here, but this gives you at least an idea of like where we start, right? And trying to just change that perception from the finite world. I think the other key piece of this that is very challenging sometimes for people is to not look at your current circumstances. So actually, it's funny. I was just having a conversation in DMs with somebody. They were telling me that, to bring clarity, you need to know where you're coming from. But I'm not sure that I totally agree with that, actually, because I think if you get too bogged down and you start focusing only on where you are, you're going to hold yourself back, because maybe your bank account does not reflect what it is that you truly desire. So if you look only at these current results and you stay focused on that, then you're going to continue to get the same thing over and over. So being able to release what you are now, or where your results are now, and focus all of your attention on where it is that you want to go.
Interesting. You talk about prosperity beyond the paycheck, right? Prosperity being not only a sum of money, but truly a state of being, I suppose. And I believe this for a lot of things, like happiness and so on and so forth. I think you can train yourself to be a happier person. I think you can train yourself to be a prosperous person. You really, I suppose, guide clients to define basically what prosperity basically means. And from my understanding, it's sort of aligning basically the internal and external basically to find in harmony. And like you said, not only a goal that you think you should have, maybe because that could be either a social construct, or that should be basically the part of your environment that just you believe is pushing you basically to such an objective, even though it's not yours, right? Just like you, for example, getting to Denver because you thought your parents will go there, which is the justification basically is great, is in my opinion is noble, but again, it was still at the end of the day a figment of what you thought was basically somewhat necessary, even though that was not grounded in reality. I think that there was, I don't recall, I think it was Oprah, actually, of all people, saying that true prosperity is appreciating basically what you already have. And again, we're
Yes.
coming back to another Buddhism quote, which is interesting very early in this podcast, which is basically this concept that I think it was Buddha directly, or it might be Seneca, that said something along the lines of the cheaper your desire, the richer you will be, right? So coming back to this concept of accepting what is and not basically what can or what will. How do you define prosperity for yourself? Perhaps let's start there. You do it for clients all the time, but what would be for basically for Jeni?
Yeah. So I would say, like, to me, living a prosperous life is just a full, abundant life. But that, again, it's not just a monetary thing, right? You really got to look at all aspects of your life. So being able to be in a healthy physical body, to have like love in your relationships, to have deep relationships. Like, I think relationships is probably one of the most important things that we can have. That's what we're really here for, right? Like, if we're not building relationships with people, then what are we doing? Actually, I was just doing a book. What was it in? The Magic. If you read that by Rhonda Burns, but it was kind of an interesting point that she made somewhere in there. And like, it's just all about trying to find gratitude, right? And she talked about how, what if you were the only person on the planet? There would be nothing to strive for. There would be nothing to do. What would you do, right? There would be no point to any of this if it was just you solely, right? So it just brought us a new perspective. And I was like, that is a really good point. So it just makes you more appreciative of all the people that you interact with throughout the day, even if that interaction is not perfect. And maybe a person was rude to you, but like, oh, well, at least I'm not here by myself. Like it just brings out this gratitude for things. But just building these great relationships, having a deeper understanding and connection with myself and my spirit is really important for me. And that is kind of an idea of prosperity to myself. But, and then also I just want to touch on too. So what I always say is you should be grateful, but not satisfied.
Yeah.
So spirit is always for like fuller expression and expansion, right? It's always trying to grow and to just expand into our life. So, and the more that we can connect with that, the more that we can expand. So, and that's also one of the fastest ways to bring more money into you as well. If you're looking for that financial abundance, is to be grateful for what you already have, right? So I even actually have this, I keep it on my desk right here, but so it's my little dollar. It says, thank you for all the money I've had throughout my life, right? So even if my current bank account doesn't reflect what I want, but there's something there, right? So always to be grateful for every single bit that you have, but still striving and growing to expand into whatever that new possibility is.
I was watching an interview. I don't recall who it was, but it was a priest actually, and it was a very emotional interview that basically he got asked one day, just basically go to work like always, and he got asked basically by a homeless person, hey, do you have $1? And he said, well, no, actually, he said it in a podcast that he was judging him to a certain extent. What are we going to do with that money and so on? So he said, no, but I can get you something basically inside. It was close to some type of a cafe. And he said, no, I just really want $1. And he said, no. And then the homeless person went to another homeless person and he said, can I have $1? Without hesitation. Grab his, not even wallet, but grab basically what he had in his pocket, give him $1 and just thank him basically and bless him. And the priest, it sort of impacted him very deeply because he, from his perspective, he was judging that person, right? Again, what are we going to do with that money? Why would I basically give my money basically to that person? And so it happens even to the people closest to God, or apparently basically closest to God. So this is, I think there's a lot of power in this concept of what you said, which is gratitude basically without full satisfaction. Because the truth is, and we see this with all athletes, we see this with generals, we see this with emperor. If you study history, the moment you think you arrive, you're declining. The moment you say, here's basically in this moment, basically he achieved everything there is to achieve, it always goes south afterwards. Always goes south. I was I was looking at Hannibal Barca, which might be far from you history wise, but is one of the greatest basically conqueror of all time. And he was fighting with Rome basically in the 16th century. And he got what he wanted. Basically, he got his revenge, the Second Punic War, if somebody wants to study it. And he got what he wanted. And then basically he said, well, we're done. And he spent basically 36 months in Italy, just saying, well, the war is over. We won. We're just celebrating from now on. And he lost everything. They came back basically, and he lost it. He lost it. He took it back from him. So it's this. I think it's mindset of perpetual learning, perpetual basically. Again, quantum leap into what is possible. I think is such an incredible mindset. I think that there might be an harmony that we might want to discuss here. How do you stay, I suppose, grounded enough for you to be grateful for what you have, but then I suppose open enough for what can be, or perhaps this prosperity in the near future that might occur to you? Do you have sort of a take on how you balance both?
Sure. So, and I just want to share too, actually, Bob would always say as well, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
So if you're not expanding, then you're going the other way, right? Just like you were saying. But yeah, for me, I mean, I can look around and I can be grateful for all of the things that we have. But I think one of the biggest ways that helps me try to stay open for more is because I have really big goals and ideas of what I want to do with that money. And for me, it actually is in the realm of like human trafficking. So that is where, like, there's a certain amount that I desire for our family, and, so we could do this move and whatever that is. But really the remainder is focused on trying to make an impact in that realm. So for me, it's like, however much I can get, the bigger impact I can make, right? Yes. So it's not just about me. And I think that also helps keep you striving because it's something bigger than yourself, right? So when you have a goal or a vision or like something where you want to make a bigger impact for the world, and you're not only focused solely on you, I think that really helps to just open you up to more possibilities and see, okay, well, what can I do? Because, this is a huge thing that I want to make a big impact in, right? So I'm going to need a lot of financial resources to assist in this. So where can I make that happen? And then, of course, there's always the immediate of taking care of yourself and your family and making sure that you guys are comfortable and have whatever it is that you desire. But then also just looking at the many blessings that we have every day, like just the fact that I can now work from home and we are homeschooling our kids, and just seeing like, all of these things that we get to see in our everyday life, and those little moments that just keep you grounded in the beauty of like what you're doing all of this for, and just being eternally grateful for it. Even though I want to move, I'm still grateful for Colorado. I still love the mountains, even though we don't go up there very much, but I still love them. I love, like, this time of year is wonderful in Colorado because it's not freezing. Things are blooming and it's really beautiful. So like, even though I love the ocean, I can still find all the beauty and be grateful for the things in my current situation as well. So just having that mix of, something that you're really striving for that's big, but also, just enjoying all of those little moments and taking a second to look out and just look at the beautiful trees now that they're finally getting their leaves, and flowers that are coming up. And so we go for walks with our dog, and, I just enjoy looking at everybody's landscaping and seeing all of these things in bloom. And it just brings so much gratitude to your everyday life.
If you don't stop to look at life once in a while, you might miss it.
Yes.
There was, it's in a movie, and I went to a restaurant actually, and there was that quote on the menu, which I thought was very interesting.
Oh.
But I want to talk to you about, you really study this curriculum, it seemed like quite a bit, which is the thinking into results, right? Which is one of, obviously, Proctor's Gallagher, basically, I suppose, curricular.
Yes.
just enlighten me with it. I know a little bit about it, basically
Okay.
breaking mental limit, but what makes thinking into results so effective for higher achievers, and perhaps how can our audience leverage such thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it just brings to light all of these concepts that we've been talking about. There's like 12 lessons, and each one is just helping you dive deeper into this information, right? So there's establishing goals and visions and making sure that they are, well, it was, I would say, a C type goal, right? So like we have our A type goals, which is basically like a lateral move, right? Like you already know how to do it, you've done it before, there's no growth involved in that. And then we have the B type, which is like, well, if all of these things align, I believe I could do this. So it's kind of like you might stretch a little bit, but you're not really going to grow with that. And then you have the C type goal that he talks
Okay.
about. So that's like, this is like, it excites you and scares you at the same time, and you have no clue how you're going to accomplish it. And you shouldn't know how. You just know that you're going to do it, right? So just that knowing without, diving into or worrying about the how, just know that you're taking actions towards it. Understanding the mind, the paradigms is a big part of it as well. Getting into the six intellectual faculties is huge too, and understanding and developing what those are. It's not necessarily something that we're taught specifically, but they're very powerful. So just kind of like regaining control of your mind in this very fast-paced world where we have so much coming at us. It's very important to kind of I don't want to lock down necessarily, but just like have control of what you are allowing in, what you are getting emotionally involved in, and what you are choosing not to get involved in. So, developing the will and our reason and perception and imagination is so key. And that is another interesting topic, because it's like we are told as kids to stop imagining, right? But in reality, our imagination is our most powerful asset. All the things that we enjoy today came from somebody's imagination, right? So they became aware of what was already here and how to create it, like the airplane, the phones that we use now, like all of these things came from imagination, right? Like, or the Jetsons, maybe, and someday we'll have the flying cars. So all of these things, somebody imagined it. So never stop imagining. But I'm getting into attitude, and then again, praxis is integrating that belief with behavior, which is also really important. But before you can do that, you want to make sure that you have established beliefs that are going to serve you and get you towards that goal, right? And then attitude, and I'm losing track now of where I'm at, but establishing the power of a mastermind as well is really important, I think. I mean, I'm part of my own mastermind too, and just having that group of individuals, because it just helps you to maybe see things that you're missing. You can bring topics up or problems that you're trying to solve, and then get that insight of other people who are also, because what do they say, the average of the top 5 people that we spend the most time with, I think it is.
Yes.
And so you want to surround yourself with people who are also striving and growing, and they have like similar visions and goals and desires that you have, so that you can support each other, and also then help to not allow yourself to get bogged down by those in your life who may not share your visions, right? So in a nutshell, I think there's more to it than that, but that kind of covers the vast majority of the information.
Let's talk about achieving a C-type goal. I'm a C-type thinker, so let's just go there right away.
Love it.
Without burnout. So I see there's really, and it really depends. It's really cultural, but every time I go to another continent, basically, I see the difference. I don't see, I feel the difference. But in
Yes.
the Western world specifically, I go as far as saying even more in North America. I'm in Canada, you're in the US. There is this performance at all cost mindset, which is really coming from the Americanizations, I think, of the Western world, which is another big conversation. But I
Yes.
do, but I do believe that I've seen, and I see it even for myself, where maybe you skip a meal, maybe you go to basically in bed late because you think you need to finish something, you skip a date basically with your partner, you don't see your mom for 3 months, right? Whatever it is, there's this there's this very interesting concept of, well, you can do anything, but you can do everything, which there's the big difference there. All right, that's David Allen. And so I'm really interested in hearing your takes on how can people grow their business tenfold, right? Let's take the 10x goal once again, without exhausting themselves, which seems to be, I think if we get the answer to these questions, I mean, we'll be more wealthy than we can even imagine. But tell me about what you think of that.
So this is an area because in the beginning, I did that as well, right? I thought, all these people are telling me I have to do all of these things. Like, I need to post 1 million times a day. I need to do this. I need to do that. And so like, I was exhausting myself trying to do all the things that I was told that I need to do. So I have come to learn, and I'm so grateful for. So there is a masculine energy and a feminine energy, right? Yeah. And this is not just a separate of gender. This is just a type of energy, right? And that masculine is that is the action, right? That is like the go, strive, that type of energy. But then there's this feminine energy where you're tapping into, you're bringing in the emotion, and you're also letting it go, right? So you need to have a great balance of the two of them and understand that you really don't have to work 15 hours a day to 10x your business. The beautiful thing is once you get aligned and you start to understand these concepts and you put them into practice, you could probably work less and 10x your business. And it's really, it's just incredible when you see people make it happen. It is so great. But so really understanding a couple of things here. So we have this big goal that we're striving for, right? And we're always keeping it in mind. But there's this beautiful thing when you're still working towards it, you're taking action towards it. Yes, we are going to take action, but you also detach from the result, which is just an interesting concept. And I think that is a hard thing for people to do because they get stuck in this like wanting it so bad that they're so attached to it and they're holding on to it so tightly that you're actually repelling it, right? So there's who was it? That's a Kathleen Cameron. I love her. She has this ladder of beliefs. So you start out in an energy of need, right? Like maybe you're looking at your current bank account and you're like, I need to make this many sales because I have to pay off these bills, whatever that might be. And you are just stuck in this like need. And again, you're repelling, you're not bringing that to you. And then maybe you bring it up to a want. So now it's like, I really want this. And it's still, you're really attached to that outcome. And then we can bring it up to a belief like, okay, I believe that it is going to happen. Right. So you start to like understand, like, I believe this, I don't have to strive so hard. I don't have to work so hard. It's going to happen. But even better than that is knowing, like you know, with absolute certainty that whatever that result is going to happen. And once you can come from a place of knowing and change your energy to that level, that's when things will start flowing. So then you don't have to strive. It's not to say that you're just going to sit there and think about it and do nothing, but you have to have that balance. You're still going to take action, but you're going to take inspired action that you feel aligned with. So when I started cutting out or delegating some of the things, like I got a VA and I'm like, okay, cover these things for me because I just don't have the time for it anymore. I just can't do it. I'm driving myself nuts. So when you start either delegating some of those tasks or just cutting out the ones that really don't feel like they align and you're just doing them because somebody told you had to, and then establish the beliefs behind that, right? So you could say, like, if somebody tells you you need to post, I don't know, 7 times a week or something, or probably more than that. Some people are like 3 to 5 times a day. And I'm like, you're crazy. But so say somebody tells you that, and you can just establish the belief, I only need to post twice a week. And the people who need to find me are going to find me. And just say, I will post twice a week and it will bring in all of the clients that I need. And you just establish the belief and you go into and you do the action knowing that I'm going to do this, it's going to work. And just absolute knowing that it is going to work and it will work But if there's doubt, if there's still worry and doubt and fear behind that action, it's not going to have the same effect.
Very interesting. The power of language is one that we very much underestimate. I don't recall the psychologist that said this, but he said if you understood how powerful your mind is, you will never have a negative thoughts again. And
Yes.
and in you serving from fulfillment, not obligations. You just mentioned obligations. You mentioned about in your house, obviously nobody say can't or impossible. Really this sort of concept of, I've been seeing this new study as well, relatively new study, talking about this concept of yet, right? So I'm not a great speaker yet. I don't have a profitable business yet, right? This concept of, again, instead of limiting, this concept of opening up the door for what you want, what you're striving for, even from the pure language perspective. What I always tell my loved ones is that we typically use have to, right? Oh, I have to work out. I have to go to work. I have to do this. No, you get to. You get to do that. You could be in a much worse place where you don't get to do these things, and you don't get to take care of yourself. You don't get to host a dinner with your family. Those are all very beautiful things, and it could be way worse things actually. You get to go through basically this period where everything seems to fall apart, right? Because it is necessary perhaps in the overall journey. So when you're thinking about serving from fulfillment, and not obligation, I want you to, because we touched a little bit about with the origin story, but not nearly enough, I think, for your line of work. I suppose you heard about Proctor, you binge watch it for a little while, and that's fine, that's great. But when did you realize that this work was your true calling? And then what you believe, how can we perhaps help others either mimic or get some insight from that to find theirs perhaps?
Yeah. It's interesting when I first started hearing the term like life coach, right? Like that was a little bit more popular a little bit while ago, but
Yes.
I would hear people say that and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting, but I could never do that, right? So it kind of started with this pattern of anytime I would hear somebody talking about a coach in some capacity, and I would always be like, wow, that sounds cool, but I could never do that. And then I, found the first person that was considered themselves like, excuse me, a mindset manifestation coach. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like, I kind of wish I could do what she does, but I could never do that because so it's like that seed was being planted for years. The opportunities kept presenting themselves and I kept shutting them down. Like I could feel something inside of me being like, yeah, I wish I could, but I'm stuck in this profession because this is what I went to school for. So I was like, well, I have to do this until I retire because I spent all that time and money going to school, right? And I even didn't tell a lot of people for quite some time that I had switched careers because I knew that was the comments that I was going to get. And sure enough, like my dad especially, all that money you invested. Yes, but I paid that off a long time ago. But anyway, so you can like sense it. There's something inside of you, but now it's like becoming aware of that. So when that idea presents itself to you, and then I think I heard Bob saying in one of the videos, and he was like, I think he was talking about the law of compensation, but he talked about how, what we do, there's such a great need for it and so many people need it. And I just was looking at him like, I wish I could do what you do. And then I swear it was like a day after that, I got an email from the Proctor Institute, and they're like, do you ever think about like going into business for yourself, but not by yourself and starting this career? And I was like, oh my gosh, let me hear more. And then I jumped right in, and that's the training and, everything that I received from them. And so it's so interesting once you finally start to accept that idea, and these opportunities are just going to keep popping up, but being in tune and starting to pay attention to them, and then not stopping yourself before you even started, right? Like I put these barriers, I put limitations on myself and who I thought I was and what I was capable of doing. And so I didn't even think twice about it until finally I was like, oh, like that really, this just feels like he's trying to tell me something here. And then, it came in as the opportunity. I'm like, I know that I need to jump on this time. So, and I would say that course took probably 3 years or so of like these little seeds being planted before I finally got the hint and jumped.
Wow, that's interesting. That's quite interesting. And we can see a progression, right? Because you said that now you're much more flexible with your belief, and you have this ability to really abandon the belief if it's not serving you. I mean, there's a lot of growth there because 3 years basically with that course to now being able to have such a flexibility, I think is quite amazing. I want to rebound on a quote that I found basically about you, which is most people has never been truly heard. That's where I start basically. It's sort of coming back to the art of deep listening, right? And there's all sort of cliche, you have two ears, one mouth, so on and so forth. But the which I think is a true cliche, but it's still somewhat overused. But the when you're thinking about the art of listening, you really sort of credits your background, it seems like, to cultivating these rare skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even from your transitions, I think from traditional healthcare to physical basically therapy to quantum leap coaching and prosperity coaching, I see a lot of it being basically you deeply listen to some of your mentors, sometimes even deeply listen to yourself. So I think something that we misunderstand. But
Mm-hmm.
coming back to listening others, perhaps, how does perhaps active listening change the dynamics between you as a coach and your clients? How does that tangibly impact basically the overall process? And is that something that people mention when they work with you as sort of as a reason why they appreciate it so much? Because the truth is, we don't have many opportunities to be really heard.
Mm-hmm.
There's always typically, not always, but typically there's a motive behind it, right? So you're deeply
Yeah.
heard because he wants you to be a client. You're deeply heard because there's a
Mm-hmm.
motive behind it. So only be heard for the sole sake of it is something quite special. Tell me more about how that play on the dynamics.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so interesting. And I actually, like you said, I think hearing myself was probably the hardest part. I've always been able to like tune in and listen to others, and definitely like through my work as a physical therapist, I think I that was just such a necessity, right? Like at that time and that work allowed me to really put myself out of the equation, right? So I could solely focus on them and what I can do to help them. So I've always been kind of service minded and like trying to like that's why I went into healthcare in the first place, and that's why I went into this profession, because I truly just want to come from a place of service, right? And I think when you do that and you just remove yourself and only like really put yourself into their shoes with like empathy and compassion and trying to understand what it is that they're coming from. And, that took practice. And sometimes even working in physical therapy, like some people would come in and I'd be like, oh, like it would be hard not to judge their mindset, right? And it's so interesting, after learning so much and looking back at the patients and seeing where their limitation was their mindset. It wasn't physical, but that was what I was bound to help them with, right? But I swear I spent more treatment sessions just being a sounding board for them, like just allowing them to have some place to talk and to just feel safe. And like you said, seen and heard. And I do think that that was something like even through that time that people really appreciated. And I can't tell you how many times that I just would sit back and listen and just, allow them to talk about whatever it was that they needed to talk about. And maybe I would guide their conversation or help them see things a little bit differently or something like that. But I mean, it was almost more like a mental health appointment rather than a physical therapy appointment at sometimes, right? Because there's so many other pieces to whatever they were going through. So I already had this practice from 15 years of doing that. So the transition into doing it and a coaching perspective came pretty easily, right? I think the hardest place to train yourself to do that in the beginning, when you're trying to get started and you're really focused on getting those clients, is during that sales call, right? Like you're trying to, like, you want to help them, you want to think about them, but then you're also like, how could I turn this so that you could, like, I know that I could help you, you could become a client. Like, so really there's that detachment from the result, right? So if you can detach yourself from the outcome of them becoming your client and fully be engaged and try to understand what they want. And sometimes you have to weed that out of people. Like, even when they're coming to you and they know that there's something, but they might not even know for themselves exactly what that is. Like, I know that I'm meant for more. I know that I'm trying to do something, but I don't really know what that is, right? So, like, trying to help them understand themselves a little bit and understand what their vision might be, and just helping them form those goals and ideas before they're even your client, because you're just coming from a place of service purely, right? And when you can really do that and really focus on them, it makes it so much easier to be an active listener. But again, you can't do that if you're not listening. So you really need to take the time and tune in to what they're telling you. And I've always been very observant, I guess you could say. Like, I pick up on people's mannerisms. I really observe, like, them as a whole person. And I didn't even become aware of the fact that I did this until, like, I don't know, within the last several months. And I was like, wow, I really like listen and pick up on so much of the whole person that I didn't even realize I was doing. But it's just like that. Like, people really do appreciate you bringing that clarity to them, and you can tell if somebody's really listening to you or not.
I think you can. I think you can. It reminds me of a story. Was a student applying for internship in financial institutions, and she did very well in school. So anyway, she got the interest of some of the top players. And I don't recall the first guy's name, but she went on basically this internship dinner, basically, with the person that made that such a choice. And she said, when I left this meeting, I left feeling that this person that I was talking with was the most intelligent person in England. All right. And in the world, perhaps, maybe. And but he was British. And then basically she did the same thing with Warren Buffett about people. And she said that at the end of the meeting with Warren, I thought I was the most intelligent person in the world. And that basically is something that even I basically struggle quite a bit. But it's this sort of putting your ego aside to, well, I need to be the most important person. I need to be the smartest person. I need to prove, perhaps, quote unquote, to anybody else, basically, that I'm this extraordinary and valuable person. And when you're, again, coming back to the ladder of perhaps, I don't know how she calls it, but you were mentioning this ladder of belief. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And basically, it's ladder of belief that start with need. Well, in many ways, that's a need, right? That's the need to be valuable. Validations, perhaps, is really where it comes from. And I found that in my sales calls, when I build a friendship, when I do anything, all right, Dale Carnegie, I think, had a great, obviously, I don't know if I have it on my desk. No, I don't. But the how to win friends and influence people, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
The most important words in all the vocabulary for somebody is their name, is them, is let them talk about them. Let them, perhaps, like you said, maybe guide them here and there, but let them just discuss what they have on their mind. And it is so simple, yet, again, in a world so prone to performance and flashiness and fake it till you make it sort of mindset, there's this disconnections conversation wise with trying to dominate it. You were talking about the masculine feminine energy, right? And I typically the way I see it is there's the active, which is temperaments, by the way, like you said, detached from sex. There's very masculine women, there's very feminine man. Doesn't matter whatsoever. So the from a temperament perspective, the masculine energy active basically is do, perhaps. And then the feminine energy basically reflect is passive, reflect and perhaps basically be
Yes.
which is something that us young men needs to train us on most of the time. And so just be,
To
just allow
allow.
yourself,
Yeah.
exactly, allow yourself to sort of emerge off of this, out of whatever situation that you have. But this keep playing with perspective again, from thinking I should be the most important person, the most basically intelligent person, to I want to make you feel like you are, is one that I think is highly underrated. Um, I want
Yes.
to one thing that I would like for us to sort of finish with from a topic perspective is really a message to daughters. All right, we have a lot of people that come on this show and have
Mhm.
similar topics, similar basically belief, and I always have the same thing, right? Well, that's who. That's basically that's sort of the magic, basically thinking and so on. There's still this restriction, less and less, which I think is a great thing.
Mhm.
I think we come back from. I was talking with the transformational shaman of mine, lovely lady, and she was talking about the fact that basically from an astrophysical basically standpoint, we are shifting towards a world that will be more in the being, more in the believing. So we shall see, perhaps, as they say.
Yes.
But what would you say to someone who knows what they want, but secretly doubt they can get it, and just fundamentally think that all these things are simply wishful thinking and without any deep substance?
Oh, there's so much there. But I think going back to that self-worth and understanding who you really are. And, this is a message I have had to tell myself so many times because there was years and years of programming that my worth was based on what other people thought of me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So to find unconditional love for yourself, which is not easy to do, right? So, like, for example, if you are a little bit overweight, right? And you're like, I will love myself when I lose 30 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So, we're putting these parameters, these conditions around even loving ourselves. So, how can we expect other people to love us for who we are if we don't love ourselves, right? So, if you want to to reach for these goals or do these other things, and you're listening to outside people telling you that it's not possible, or, you have all these influences or years of programming telling you that you can't do it, then you need to come back to yourself. And again, that self-image, that self-concept, and develop a deep love for yourself. So I think of that actually like the way that we love our children, right? Like, sure, they might irritate us or whatever, but we have the deepest love for our kids. You should have that for yourself as well. And love yourself today, no matter what you are, no matter what your results are, knowing that you are enough. And once you can establish that, and some people, it might take a little bit longer than others to really get in that place. But once you can understand that and know that you are worthy and that your voice needs to be heard, because there's nobody else that's exactly like you. So even if we share a lot of similar ideas and beliefs, and we're all collectively trying to raise the conscious awareness of this world and like just improve it, there's still billions of people in this world, and they're not all going to resonate with every single person. There's somebody out there who needs to hear what you have to say. There is only one you, right? Like, whatever your name is, Sally. There's only one Sally, and we need Sally. Like, she has an important role to play. So anytime that self-doubt comes in, you've got to be able to go back and get into like true love of yourself, unconditional, knowing that you're enough and not listening to any of those negative outside voices there.
Extraordinary. Well, Jeni Jonte, it was an absolute pleasure to share this moment with you. Such a thoughtful and deepful conversations, and I really saw you sort of pour your heart. So I really appreciate you, perhaps being so involved and so basically active within these conversations. And doubt killed more dreams than failure ever will, perhaps. So I would love for you to share your last words of wisdom with our audience, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I just want to end with sharing that yes, everything absolutely is possible. do not allow these limitations of what other people might tell you to bring you down, because you can accomplish whatever you desire.
Thank you for spending your time with us today on the Meaningful Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or share it with someone who could benefit from it. And always remember, your story matters. Make it meaningful. We hope to see you next time.